Hi there, my name is Dion De Bruin. I started Constructum Consulting to help entrepreneurs develop their businesses into assets of value. When does a business become an asset of value? A business becomes an asset of value when an investor is willing to pay a premium for an ownership stake in the business. If you are a business owner and you're starting to think about one day selling your business, then this video is specifically made for you. For most of my career, I specialized in the field of estate planning, giving advice to individuals on how to protect and preserve wealth for the next generation. When advising entrepreneurs, I faced a very specific problem. I had to estimate the value of the entrepreneur's business interests. Most business valuation models depend entirely on the information contained in the financial statements of the business, but as I learned, ignores those factors that most profoundly affect the real world value of the business. It's one thing to estimate the value of a business. It's a completely different proposition to actually realize value from disposing of a business. Business brokers almost unanimously agree that less than 10% of businesses will be successfully sold. But what do they mean when they say successfully sold? When you look at the values at which business brokers advertise businesses for sale, you'll find that businesses are advertised for sale at values equal to 1 to 1.5 times annual earnings, a figure falling far short of what most entrepreneurs hope to get for their business one day. Over the last couple of years, I've made it my mission to understand why so few businesses are successfully sold and what entrepreneurs can do to better prepare for their eventual business exit. I've come to understand that a successful exit strategy hinges on 3 parts: a transformation, transaction, and promotion. The remainder of this video is an introduction to a book that I've written on this very topic. A good starting point is to ask the question, what does the landscape of potential buyers look like? At the low end of the scale, you find what I call owner-operators. Owner-operators want to take over the operation of your business. They essentially want to buy a job. They want to use their skills to operate the business, and their main preoccupation is income. But there's a problem with owner-operators. They don't have money. If you want to sell your business for a few $100,000 or maybe 1 or 2 million rand, you may be able to find an owner-operator to take over from you. But anything north of 3 million rand and you're going to have a very big challenge finding an owner-operator to buy your business from you. Right on the other side of the scale, you find private equity investors, professionals, big boy investors, institutions wanting to invest 10, 20, 30 million rand in 100 or 150 million rand business. Most small businesses are simply too small for institutional investors. Then there is venture capitalists, speculative, aggressive investors. A venture capitalist wants to find a business to invest a substantial amount of money to fund an accelerated growth strategy. What a venture capitalist wants is to find a business that's worth 5 or 10 million rand that can grow to a 30, 40 million rand business in 5 to 7 years. And then the venture capitalist wants to participate in a successful exit. Most businesses rely on an organic, slow and steady growth strategy. But slow and steady is the last thing that a venture capitalist wants to hear. They want fast and furious. Then there are strategic buyers. Strategic buyers want to acquire certain assets that your business owns, that the strategic buyer believes is going to contribute to their strategic objectives. A strategic buyer does not want to buy your business lock, stock, and barrel. What a strategic buyer wants is to enter into an asset purchase or sale agreement. This type of agreement has three major drawbacks. The first drawback is that the strategic buyer wants to acquire only certain assets. They want to exclude certain assets from the transaction. So they might say to you, we want to buy your plant and equipment, but we're not interested in your vehicles. The second drawback is that strategic buyers want to acquire your assets at market value, and they want to exclude any intangibles like goodwill from the transaction. The third drawback to a strategic buyer is that what happens in effect with this type of transaction is that your business is disposing of the assets, which means your business is going to pay tax on that disposal. And once the business has paid the tax, that money must then come to you as the business owner. Best case scenario, that money comes to you as a final dividend, which is then also subject to taxation. Selling your business to a strategic buyer is almost always negative for the current owner of a business. Then we have private investors. A private investor is a wealthy individual, a person that wants to invest in an asset. The last thing that a private investor wants is to take over the operation of a business. A private investor is not looking for a job. A private investor is looking for a business with the internal capacities and the financial resources to operate profitably and independently. A private investor is looking for a business with 6 characteristics. A business that generates profits consistently, but more importantly, grows earnings by at least 20 to 25% per annum. A business with an established management team with a good track record for producing results, and a management team preferably with vested interest in the continued success of the business after the departure of the current owner. A business with little or no debt, a business with a growing and a diversified customer base, a business with effective and efficient systems in place, and a business with credible financial reporting. These 6 criteria together make up a minimum threshold. A minimum threshold for the business to participate in the competition for investor capital. Unfortunately, most small businesses do not meet this minimum standard. I wrote this book and I started Constructum Consulting to help entrepreneurs who typically have what I call an owner-operator replicator type of business and transform that business into an asset of value. An asset of value that will attract the favorable attention of investors. Most businesses are owner-operator replicator type of businesses. They're owner-operator type of businesses because the business depends entirely on the involvement of the business owner for sales, operations, and financial management. Take the business owner out of the business and all you are left with is an empty shell. But most businesses are also replicator businesses. indistinguishable from the other businesses in the industry. They sell the same product to the same customers in the same way and at virtually the same cost. A replicator type of business has no investment value. I suggest that every entrepreneur should come to a specific decision, a fork in the road, where you must decide, is your business going to be an asset of value, or are you going to run your business as an income generating machine? A couple of years ago, a customer was referred to me. He wanted me to review his estate planning. This old guy had a master's degree in electronic engineering and an absolute passion for electronic design. His business designed and developed electronic timing devices for the manufacturing sector. He had a great reputation. His customers loved him and he made a good living from his business. But there was a problem. He was the only person in the business with the qualifications and the skills to design and develop these products. So, when the customer passed away, still working in his business at the age of 76, the business came to an abrupt end and was liquidated for very little money. But this was no problem for the old man. You see, he had made a conscious decision that his business was going to be nothing more than an income-generating machine. In the preceding decades, he extracted profits from the business and built up a very valuable investment portfolio. He had no expectation of one day realizing any money from disposing of his business. If, however, you are an entrepreneur and you decide that your business must become an asset of value that you can one day dispose of for a good amount of money, then you need to adopt a very different perspective. You need to develop skills in a specific field of study, a discipline called business finance. Business finance is about creating, growing, and ultimately realizing shareholder value for you, the founder and first investor in your business, but also potentially for investors. But before you decide, I want to suggest to you that you do a little introspection. What type of entrepreneur are you? What motivates you? John Warrilow suggests that there are three types of entrepreneurs: the freedom fighter, the master craftsman, and the mountain climber. A freedom fighter starts a business because they want to be free. They don't want to be in the corporate world. They don't want to report to a boss. Freedom fighters typically start replicator type of businesses where you can use your current network of contacts and the skills that you've obtained working in your industry to start a business, often with very little capital. It's the shortest route to freedom. The problem with freedom fighters is that freedom fighters often make the mistake of thinking that a profitable business is necessarily a valuable business. Not so. Then you get the master craftsman. The old man that I spoke of earlier is a fantastic example of a master craftsman. He had a passion for his industry, something close to a religion. He is more concerned with building his reputation as an expert, a specialist in his field, than building the value of his business. The last type of entrepreneur is a mountain climber. Mountain climbers climb the mountain because it's there. It's all about achievement, accomplishing the goal. Of the three types of entrepreneurs, mountain climbers are perhaps the best disposed to building a business into an asset of value. However, I am convinced that any entrepreneur who's prepared to make the sacrifices and develop the skills can build a business into an asset of value. The business model of a replicator type business is based on a plan, a formula, a recipe. But if you want to transform your business into an asset of value, then you must come up with a different strategy. You need a strategy to create value. Value on 3 levels. Value for the customer, value for suppliers, and value for customers. A strategy is a set of decisions or choices that the business owner makes about the direction the business is going to take to create a unique mix of value on those 3 levels. Replicator type of businesses are based on a plan to compete. Valuable businesses are based on a strategy to win. A business's value proposition is derived from its strategy. It is the message that the business communicates to customers about why they should buy from the business, to suppliers about why they should supply to the business, and to shareholders why they should invest in the business. Earlier, I mentioned 6 criteria that together make up the minimum threshold for a business to participate in the competition for investor capital. But what makes the business win at the competition is a carefully crafted and effectively communicated value proposition. But a value proposition is little more than an aspirational statement without a business model that supports the value proposition, that puts the value proposition at the center. A business model is nothing more than an organization consisting of people, processes, and policies. People with the right skills and qualifications to do the work, processes, that is the core and ancillary processes made up of activities or tasks performed by people to produce the product or deliver the service, and policies, the rules about how people are supposed to act within and without the business. Now, if you are an entrepreneur with an existing business, it's probable that you are at a place in the business's development where you have perhaps become a little bit burnt out, a little bit tired. What you need to do if you want to transform a owner-operator replicator type of business into an asset of value is to dig deep, is to reimagine what value means for those 3 stakeholders: the customer, suppliers, and shareholders. After all, investors are looking for a vigorously growing and exciting business to invest in. Start by thinking about what would attract an investor. Investors are not only interested in the profits of a business. An investor is interested in understanding what is going to drive value, shareholder value in the future. You need to consider how you are going to create value on those 3 levels. How will you create a business model around a value proposition that is going to create value for the customer, for suppliers, and for shareholders at the same time? I recently came across a business that successfully implemented a transformation that led to a very successful business exit. The business was a car wash business. Now, there's very few businesses more mundane than a car wash business. The management of the car wash business decided that they were going to reimagine what value means for the customer. they decided to implement a monthly subscription model. Customers were offered a 12-month contract with a monthly subscription equal to 2 full car washes. In return, customers could have their vehicles washed as often as they liked. Initially, some of the customers took advantage of the system, bringing their cars to be washed 4 or 5 times a month. But after a while, the novelty wore off and most customers reverted back to having their vehicles washed twice monthly. After implementing the new system, the business was no more profitable than before, but the business had developed a new asset. The business now had a customer base with a predictable revenue stream. As a result, an investor was persuaded to buy the business for more money than businesses are being sold in this industry, because this business had differentiated itself. It created value for the customer, it created value for the shareholder, and of course, it created value for suppliers. The point that I'm trying to make is that you have an existing business. You can transform a business from an owner-operator replicator type of business by simply reimagining how you are going to create value for all 3 of those stakeholders. There's no one way of exiting your business. You can opt for a variety of exit strategies. Suffice to say that an exit strategy must take into account and address the preferences and concerns of the type of investor that you are targeting. The local market for private investors is very small. According to the Southern African Venture Capital and Private Equity Association, less than 4% of capital invested in private equity came from private investors. This market is a highly competitive market. So far, I've argued that to succeed in the competition for investor capital, the business must firstly pass the minimum threshold described earlier. Then the business must present a persuasive value proposition. But then there is one more element that needs to be addressed, and that is investor risk. The way in which the transaction is structured must address and mitigate the risks that investors perceive in the deal. In summary then, an effective exit strategy hinges on 3 elements: a transformation, transaction, and a promotion. A transformation of the business from an owner-operator replicator type of business to an asset of value, a business that has the internal capacities and the financial resources to operate profitably and independently. A transaction that results in a win-win, where the current owner of the business gets a good amount of money for their business and the potential investor gets an asset of value with good growth prospects. And a successful promotion of the business to prospective buyers. Don't wait. The worst thing that you can do is to wait until you are tired and burnt out and then try to put up your business for sale. You will lose big time. The best thing that you can do is to build a business right from the start into an asset of value to eventually attract the favorable attention of investors. But if you are the owner of an owner-operator replicator type of business, you may still have time to transform the business into an asset of value if you are prepared to make the sacrifices and acquire the skills that you will need for this journey. My name is Dion de Bruin. I started Constructum Consulting to help business owners transform their businesses into assets of value. For a free initial consultation, contact me directly. My email address will appear on the screen. Thank you for your attention and all the best with your business.